All praise to Ketel Marte for salvaging the series against the New York Mets.
You are Locked On Diamondbacks, your daily Arizona Diamondbacks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into the Locked On Diamondbacks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. You're listening to who? The always charismatic host of this podcast, Millard Thomas. I'm a multimedia journalist and I'm a graphic designer, so please go check out my website, millardthomas24.myportfolio.com, to see all of my latest work. Today's episode is brought to you by Supply House. SupplyHouse.com is the reliable way to get parts fast. Shop for your next plumbing, HVAC, or electrical job and get fast shipping from coast to coast at SupplyHouse.com. On today's Locked On Diamondbacks podcast, we'll talk about that series against the New York Mets, the best and worst D-backs leaving the month of May, and panic meter once again as we do every Monday podcast. Thank you for making Locked On Diamondbacks your first listen every day. I would not be able to do this podcast without you, my loyal listeners, sharing, subscribing, reviewing, doing all that so I could do this podcast for you. Thank you. It's free. It's available on all platforms, so please continue to tell your friends. One of those platforms is YouTube, so please hit subscribe to Locked On Diamondbacks on YouTube. Our goal is to hit 2,000 subs by the All-Star break, so please hit subscribe to Locked On Diamondbacks on YouTube. But now let's get into the podcast, and let's talk about that series against the New York Mets, because I thought I was going to come on this podcast and absolutely rip the D-backs a new one, as we've done on almost every podcast the last couple of weeks, because of their poor performance from their offense and so many different areas of this team, right? I thought this was going to be a series where the D-backs lose 3 out of 4 because that's how the finale was shaping up. It looked like it was going to be decent pitching once again, with the offense doing absolutely nothing, a story that we've read and foretold a bunch over the last few weeks. But in the 9th inning, Gabriel Moreno gets it started with a double off the wall, and then Ketel Marte, our savior, arguably the best D-backs player this season, rips it to dead center for a 2-run home run. D-backs take the lead, and then of course their closer, Paul Sewald, the savior in the bullpen, because ever since he's come back, the bullpen has really started to round into form for the D-backs. And of course, they've been looking for their closer for years now. Ever since I've taken over the Locked On Diamondbacks podcast, I would say closer has been the biggest issue for this D-backs team. And in Sunday's game, you were able to see how valuable a Paul Sewald was. Ketel Marte, he gets himself 2 home runs in the game. I'm trying to figure out right now, looking at it right now, the home run in the 9th inning for Ketel Marte, 106 miles per hour off the bat, 439 feet would have been a home run in all 30 ballparks. The first home run of the game, Ketel Marte started the game with a home run, 104.9 miles per hour off the bat, 416 feet would have been a home run in 26 of the 30 ballparks. Tropicana, no. Comerica, no. Coors Field, no. And funny enough, Chase Field, home of the D-backs, would not have been a home run there either, but Ketel Marte, phenomenal performance on Sunday. He's been struggling ever since he came off his hitting streak, and he did a great job to salvage this series for the D-backs because, like I said, I thought I was going to come on this podcast and rip them a new one for losing 3 out of 4 potentially. After that Game 1 against New York Mets, which was really frustrating, we saw our ace, Zach Gallen, go down after just a handful of pitches. Same hamstring as last time. But even with Zach Gallen going down, the D-backs still have themselves a decent performance from their pitching staff, only allowing 3 earned runs total by the bullpen over the course of 9 innings. Yeah, you would take that if you're the D-backs. And so for their offense not to show up in game number 1 was really frustrating to see. The top of their lineup did absolutely nothing. You had 1 hit from Ketel Marte in game number 1. But outside of that, the top of your lineup did nothing and the D-backs lose. Then you go to game number 2. The D-backs offense actually shows up in game 2. It was classic D-backs, scoring 3 runs in the first inning. But Jordan Montgomery, someone that we've asked to give us a little bit more this season with injuries to the rotation, Merrill Kelly, Erod, now Gallen going down. We needed Monte in game number 2, knowing Gallen got hurt in game number 1, to step up in a big way and deliver the D-backs a win. He's making a ton of money this season, and that would have been a perfect opportunity to deliver a stellar performance against a really struggling New York Mets team on the road. And Jordan Montgomery was not able to do that. D-backs score 3 runs in the first. Jordan Montgomery gives up 4 runs in the bottom of the first, and the Mets retake the lead. And he is just never really able to find his footing. 6 earned runs over 4 innings pitched for Jordan Montgomery in game number 2. Really disappointed to see the offense not show up in game 1, but the pitching staff show up. And then in game number 2, the offense shows up, but the pitching staff does not. You get home runs from a Jock Peterson and a Eugenio Suarez and a Christian Walker. Like, you got more power than you ever get in a game. Typically, you don't get 3 home runs in a 3-week span. And the fact that you got it in one game, wasted opportunity in game number 2. D-backs did come back in game number 3. They looked really good in that one. The offense puts 10 runs on the board. But again, there was a moment earlier in that game, right before that Christian Walker grand slam, you had second and third with nobody out, and Ketel, Marte, and Corbin Carroll do absolutely nothing. Randall Grichuk draws a walk to load the bases with 2 outs, and thankfully, Christian Walker bails out the offense with a grand slam. But big moment in that game where the D-backs could have squandered an opportunity and potentially have lost that game. Slade Ciccone looked really good over the course of 5 innings. I love the fact that Kevin Ginkel came in immediately after him, and the D-backs wasted no time to go to a Kevin Ginkel, who has been struggling in high leverage moments, struggling in that 8th inning setup role, even struggling in the 7th. I like the fact that the D-backs said, you know what? This is still a moment in the ballgame where we need to keep it close. Let's go to a Kevin Ginkel who we don't trust right now in the 8th inning, but still a big spot, still pressurized spot for a Kevin Ginkel. So I love the fact that Torey Lovullo used him in a high-pressure moment, but it wasn't a moment late in the ballgame. I think it was the perfect opportunity for Kevin Ginkel to grow his confidence. So I thought that was actually a very smart move by Torey Lovullo in that situation. Then, of course, Sunday, we thought the D-backs were going to lose. Ketel Marte, hero on Sunday with 2 home runs. Brandon Pfaadt, I thought was fine. He had himself one bad inning that he needs to work on, like in every start where he has one bad inning. He had 2 outs on the board and then gives up 4 runs in the consecutively after getting 2 outs on the board. Really disappointing stuff in that one inning for Brandon Pfaadt. That was the 3rd inning against the New York Mets. But overall in the day, once again, gives you length. 6 innings pitch. Once again, racks up the strikeouts, 8 Ks. I think Pfaadt, he's still working on things. He's still not a perfect pitcher right now, but again, I think by the end of the season, we're all going to look at Pfaadt as like a legit frontline starter, perfect number 2 in a rotation. I think Pfaadt is emerging as one of the best starting pitchers in Major League Baseball, and he just needs to work on a few things to really get to the next level. D-backs do a great job of salvaging the series on the backs of Ketel Marte, and we'll talk about the hottest and coldest players for the D-backs leaving the month of May in segment number 2. But before we get into that little conversation, I first want to talk to you guys about Supply House, because get supplies from the site that's made for the skilled trades, supplyhouse.com. Supplyhouse.com is the reliable way to order plumbing, HVAC, and electrical products online. Their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get the job done right. Shop a complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from over 400 top brands and get your order delivered right to your door with fast shipping from coast to coast. Need help with an order? Get expert support and industry-leading service from the friendliest folks in the business, and talk to a real person every time. Pros in the skilled trades can get a competitive edge by joining SupplyHouse.com's free Trade Master program. Every Trade Master gets access to a dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every order. Join the thousands of trade pros already benefiting from their free membership membership at supplyhouse.com/TM and order plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies from anywhere with just a few clicks at supplyhouse.com. All right. Let's get back into the Locked On Diamondbacks podcast. And now that we are leaving the month of May, let's talk about the hottest and coldest D-backs players from this past month. We'll first start with the offense because the list of hot players leaving the month of May for the D-backs is not very long. Jock Peterson was by far the best D-backs player. He had around a 320 average, around a 950 OPS in the month of May, 5 home runs, led the D-backs in ribbies as well, absolutely crushed it at the plate. So if you want to talk about the hottest players for the D-backs this past month, it was by far Jock Peterson leading the pack. When we talk about the rest of the team, you can easily see why this D-backs offense struggled so much. Literally just go on MLB.com and filter it by the month of May for the whole D-backs team because it is not pretty after Jock Peterson. Jake McCarthy was second on this team in OPS in the month of May with an OPS around 770. Like, it wasn't even an 800 OPS. This was a guy that had 8 walks, 8 strikeouts, so got on base a decent amount of times, actually drew the third most walks in the month of May for the D-backs. He had a couple home runs. Jake McCarthy was good in the month of May, but the fact that by the numbers he was the second best player is kind of concerning when he had a batting average around 250 and an OPS around 770. It's a concern when that's considered your second hottest player over the course of a month. Really, every D-backs player really struggled. Of course, Eugenio Suarez, he has struggled this whole season. He continued to struggle in the month of May. Really nice to see him get a home run this past weekend, but he's been horrendous. Tucker Barnhart was not good in the month of May either. Lourdes Gurriel, around a 530 OPS in the month of May with a 210 batting average just near. Gabriel Moreno below 600 OPS in the month of May. Randall Grichuk, the average is fine, but the OBP and the slugging have not been up to par in the month of May. Look at Corbin Carroll. By his standards, I guess you could actually say he's been hitting better, but still around a 610 OPS in the month of May with around a 200 average. A Christian Walker, he was around a 240 average, around a 730 OPS. Ketel Marte, around a 700 OPS, around a 215 average. Like, every D-backs player up and down the lineup really did not produce that well in the month of May. Kevin Newman's probably the other guy you could say had a good month. He batted over 300 in the month of May. So outside of Jock Peterson, Jake McCarthy, and Kevin Newman, for the month of May, really every D-backs player struggled and did not have themselves a good time at the plate. So how could you expect this offense to be bad if 80% of the lineup is just not producing at all? That's why this D-backs team recently being able to score at least 5 runs in the last 3 games, it's the first time we've seen them show any signs of competitive life at the plate at all over the last few weeks in terms of game after game consistency. And so the last 3 games of this Mets series, maybe it awoken up a little something in this D-backs offense and these D-backs hitters because they started to play a lot better the last 3 games. They had 9 hits in Sunday's game. In game number 3, they had 11 hits. And in game number 2, they had 9 hits. So they were putting in work the last 3 games of the series, really doing a good job offensively. The question is, can they keep it going, or was it just a product of the Mets pitching? That's what we'll see in this next series against the San Francisco Giants. But good to see at least the D-backs offense waking up a little bit the last 3 games, knowing how bad their entire lineup has been in the month of May. But the same can't be said for the pitchers of the D-backs because there was some very good performances. Yes, some down performances, but when you look at Justin Martinez, he absolutely crushed it in the month of May, allowed no earned runs. And does anyone look more confident on the mound than a Justin Martinez right now? No one has maybe better precision and command. The way his split finger and his sinker balls and his fastballs, like, he is nasty, and he is in full command of his arsenal. Ryan Thompson was elite in the month of May as well, only allowing 1 earned run. Paul Sewald only allowed 1 earned run in the month of May as well. Blake Walston has been really good for the D-backs recently. Over his last 2 outings, he has been really impressive as well. I like Blake Walston. I want to keep him in the rotation going forward. 2 earned runs over his last 8.1 innings pitch. And then Bryce Jarvis in the bullpen has also started to heat up a little bit. He went 12.1 innings pitched, 3 earned runs for a 2.19 ERA in the month of May. That's kind of the D-backs go-to quartet right now. Martinez, Ryan Thompson, Paul Sewald, and Bryce Jarvis, with a little Joe Mansply mixed in, who had a 4.5 ERA in the month of May, 4 earned runs over 8 innings pitched, which is fine. And you look at the rest of this D-back staff, we know Slade has been good in the month of May. Matt Bowman wasn't good in the month of May. He's DFA'd. Brandon Hughes hasn't been good in the month of May. That's not a shock. He is one of the hottest options to be sent back down to the minors or get DFA'd in the future. Ryan Nelson, he needs to be better. He'll be starting in the next series against the San Francisco Giants. Kevin Ginkel struggled in the month of May, good in his most recent outing against the New York Mets. Hopefully he could use that as a confidence builder going forward. But for the most part, the D-backs now have at least 4 good relievers going for them right now. And Martinez, Thompson, Sewald, and Bryce Jarvis. If Kevin Ginkel can get back on the horse and start turning his season around, now you have at least 5 relievers that you trust. I like that a lot if you're the D-backs. And maybe Blake Walston, once this rotation can get healthy, maybe look at him as one of those long reliever types that you want to keep in your bullpen. As a lefty pitcher, D-backs love using a lefty specialist. Maybe go with a tall, lanky, hard-throwing lefty in a Blake Walston over guys like Cal Nelson when they get back. Just something to think about if you're the Arizona Diamondbacks. But overall, when you're looking at the hottest and coldest D-backs players from this past month, offensively, not a lot going for the D-backs. Jake McCarthy, Jock Peterson, Kevin Newman look good. The rest of the team needs to step it up. And from a pitching standpoint, Ryan Thompson, Martinez, Sewald, Blake Walston, Bryce Jarvis, all good in the month of May. Zach Gallen, of course, good in the month of May. Guys who need to be better going forward. Brandon Hughes, Slade Ciccone, Ryan Nelson, Ginkel, Jordan Montgomery, Logan Allen. Those are the guys that need to step up a little bit more. D-backs, we'll talk about their panic meter and how we feel about them at this point of the season in segment number 3. But if you want to win some money with the D-backs, then why not play on the #1 fantasy sports app called Prize Picks, because Prize Picks is here to help you win some money. With more than 5 million members, it is the most fun, exciting way to get in on the action while you watch your favorite sports and players. You pick more or less on 2 or more player stats for a shot to win up to 100 times your cash. With Prize Picks, you could turn $10 into $1,000 in a single game watching your favorite sports this summer. You can make a Prize Picks lineup in as little as 60 seconds. You just need to pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections, and you're locked in. If you're looking for promotions, Prize Picks has got you covered every week. From lowering select player stats projections on Tuesdays, which increases your chance of getting a win, to getting your entry fees back if you have a losing lineup on Fridays. Prize Picks, America's #1 fantasy sports app with over 5 million members. It's the greatest thing if you want to win some money. There's always action on Prize Picks, and this is the perfect time to try out something new as basketball is winding down. Make sure to try out esports this month, because for every Wednesday and Saturday in June, if your lineup doesn't win, you'll get your entry fee back. Choose from Counter-Strike 2, Call of Duty, League of Legends, and more. My favorite thing to do on Prize Picks is to pick a couple D-backs player stats, take them more, and see if I win. And if you want to see if you win, download the app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. Again, Prize Picks, pick more, pick less. It's that easy. All right. Let's get back into the Locked On Diamondbacks podcast. Let's talk about the panic meter for the D-backs at this point of the season. And for me, I'm going to keep it consistent with how we've kept it the last couple weeks that we've done this segment. We like to do it every Monday. The state of the D-backs right now, we like to put a number on it on the panic meter. In the last 2 weeks, I've gone with number 6. I think I'm going to keep it going number 6 as well. I debated moving this number up to a 7. But again, the D-backs, after winning Sunday's game against the New York Mets, they're still looking fine in the standings for the wild card. They're still right there with a chance to make the postseason. Yes, they lost Zach Gallen, but because of what I just said, it's hard to move it up past the 6 right now, especially when you look at the D-backs. Next opportunity is a chance against the San Francisco Giants. I'm going to keep the panic meter at a 6. The D-backs have a chance to climb back in the wild card race right now with a test against San Fran. They're directly ahead of you in the wild card standings. They currently own the 3rd wild card seed. And with the D-backs a game and a half behind San Fran, this is your opportunity to steal a playoff spot, or at least put yourself in really good position to take a spot away from San Fran later in the season, because all these head-to-head matchups mean so much for the tiebreaker once you get to the end of the year. It mattered so much last year. The D-backs had to beat the Cubs those last couple series to end the year to secure one of the wild card spots. They had to beat like the Cincinnati Reds too. Like, if you go look at the D-backs schedule from last year, they lost a lot of games in the second half, but the last 6 weeks of the season, they were beating just the teams that they needed to in the wild card. I think they lost to like every non-NL wild card team at that point of the year, if you go back and look at last year's schedule. And for the D-backs, going against the San Francisco Giants, a team directly in your path in the NL wildcard race, a great opportunity for the D-backs to make a name for yourselves. I think you're going to see a better D-backs team, because I do think they play better against the NL West, against opponents that they do know. We saw them already look good and win their most recent series against the LA Dodgers, against the San Francisco Giants team, who they see all the time, who I also don't think is super talented. I think it's a great opportunity for the D-backs to, again, make a mark in the wild card race. Will I automatically feel like the D-backs are back or a good team if they take 2 out of 3 or sweep the San Francisco Giants? No, but it will be at least a step in the right direction. The Giants are a super vulnerable team. You look at that lineup, they've had a lot of injuries. Nick Ahmed, Lamont Wade, Michael Conforto, Jung-Ho Lee is out for the season. I just don't see the ceiling with their lineup. Jorge Soler has not been good this year. Mike Yastrzemski has not been good this year. Matt Chapman, he has some pop this year in terms of 8 home runs, but outside of that, not the greatest Matt Chapman year either. I do like the pitching for the Giants. Logan Webb is really good. I think Kyle Harrison's having a fine season. Jordan Hicks has been a great hiccup in the free agency pool. But Blake Snell, if he does not turn it around, it does not matter for the San Francisco Giants season. And so right now, I think it's a perfect opportunity for the D-backs to strike the Giants while they're in one of their most vulnerable states. This is a good opportunity for the D-backs to finally climb in the NL wildcard. And if they do that, then I will drop this panic meter potentially a little bit lower from a 6. But also at the same time, the D-backs did lose their ace, Zach Gallen. He's on the injured list. Jordan Montgomery hasn't been the best. He hasn't been able to step up recently. Brandon Pfaadt has been really good, but the rotation is in shambles right now. So until this team gets healthier, I think we're going to stay on the 6 until this team starts to actually play better and they move up in the standings. I think we're going to stay at a 6. It looks like Geraldo Perdomo is on the cusp of coming back to the D-backs. He's been doing rehab in AAA. It doesn't seem like he's too far away. Alek Thomas, I think he's pretty close to starting a rehab assignment as well. Will those guys change lives in the D-backs lineup? I don't think so. I think they will be welcomed additions. Some people believe Geraldo Perdomo is going to be like the catalyst to this whole D-backs lineup and change the fortunes of their offense moving forward. I don't see that. I do think he will provide a spark and a boost. I think his plate discipline was super important last year for the D-backs. He did a great job of getting on base and setting up RBI opportunities for the top of the lineup. I thought the top of the lineup did a great job of following the lead of Geraldo Perdomo, because I thought he kind of set the standard when it came to his play discipline of what pitches to lay off, what pitches to attack on opposing pitchers. I thought Geraldo Perdomo was the standard a lot of times in who's a bat you should watch against the opposing pitcher. I thought Jerry was the guy in a lot of those situations. So I think in those type of situations, Perdomo will be super valuable to the team. But overall, Perdomo's like, what was he last year? Like the sixth most important player in the D-backs lineup after Ketel and a Christian Walker and a Corbin Carroll and a Gabriel Moreno and a Lourdes Gurriel. Like, he was maybe the sixth most important player, if that, in the D-backs lineup. And so it's like, I don't know. I think we're putting too much stock, too many eggs in the basket of Geraldo Perdomo. I think he will help, but I don't think he will be life-changing. For the D-backs to become a better team, their bats just have to wake up, and I don't think a Perdomo is all of a sudden going to tell Corbin Carroll to play better, or the Christian Walkers or the Ketel Martes to be more consistent, or we need more from you, Eugenio Suarez and Lourdes Gurriel. Like, Perdomo, his bat is not all of a sudden going to affect every single guy in the lineup and just wake all those bats up, I think, all of a sudden out of nowhere. The slumps have been so prolonged for those guys. I think those guys individually, each one needs to do it themselves. I don't think a Perdomo is all of a sudden going to change going to change life in that way. Looking forward to Perdomo coming back, but I'm not putting my expectations too big on the offense all of a sudden waking up once Jerry's back in the lineup. D-backs panic meter currently at a 6. We're down Zach Gallen. It was another week of losing to some bad teams, but at least the D-backs have an upcoming opportunity against the San Francisco Giants to change their fortunes. Now that's it for this edition of the Locked On Diamondbacks podcast. We'll talk tomorrow after the D-backs take down the Giants in game number 1. And as always, stay safe, stay healthy. Doses.